Big game, they're all big.
Got a little butterflies? If you don't, work them up. You ought to have just a little bit of butterflies, just a little bit of shake.
Keep ass, let everything hang out. Am I right?
In the long and storied history of the NFL, there have been over 7,000 football games. Although there are degrees of importance in every contest, very few attain the status of greatness. A memorable football game is as rare as a masterpiece painting, but also very similar. For like a fine work of art, there is a good deal of subjectivity when it comes to defining its beauty, power, and significance. What is it that makes some games burn brightly even in the dimmest corridors of our memory? To many purists, they are the contests dominated by fiercely aggressive defense. Contact is indeed the most stimulating essence of the sport. But historically, what brings people out of their seats and onto their feet are those gripping affairs where great defense very grudgingly yields to an all-out effort on offense. Great games involve fans as much as players. They are the ones that stretch the emotions of the populace with cheers and tears. So much so that fans and players alike are often mentally and physically drained by game's end. Above all, the truly classic contests are those whose outcome are seemingly decided by some higher order. They are the suspenseful affairs that are only resolved in the final seconds, when desperate men sketch images of victory that, like masterpieces of art, remain forever frozen in time. There have been over 7,000 games played in the NFL. Only a select few stand out as the very best that have ever been played. Most discussions about great football games begin and end with Alan Amici's touchdown and the Baltimore Colts' sudden death victory in the 1958 championship. No game in NFL history is more revered than this overtime epic that began on an unusually mild late December day in New York City. The high-profile Giants featured the likes of Frank Gifford, Alex Webster, Sam Huff, and a coaching staff that included two talented young assistants. To many observers, they had a clear edge over Weeb Eubank's very jittery Baltimore Colts.
In the locker room, everybody's nervous for the first time we've ever played in the championship game in the Yankee Stadium, and Weeb's going down. Each guy, he brought each guy in. He drafted, he knew us, and he's going down, saying where we came from. He picked us up off the sandlots. He had a great speech, but about 5 or 6 of us never heard it because we were in the head throwing up. We were nervous.
Ironically, once the game began, it was the more seasoned Giants who did some coughing up. Led by quarterback Johnny Unitas, Baltimore took advantage of numerous Giant fumbles to forge a 14-3 halftime lead. A blowout appeared imminent, especially when the Colts drove to the Giant goal line early in the third quarter.
At first we tried just, going over from about the 1-yard line. The ground was rather frozen down on that end of the field. And I didn't get good footing, and I tried 3 times and couldn't get in from the 1-yard line. So John, in his most inventive way, called me to throw a pass. It was going to be a pitch out, and then Jim Mutchler was to release from his block and then end up in the end zone. Not having heard that play before, I completely blew it, and I thought it was a sweep. So I got tackled for about a 5-yard loss, and then the whole momentum of that game changed.
In In a contest that had equal mixtures of Greek comedy and tragedy, the Giants haphazardly stumbled back. Alex Webster's timely effort following Kyle Rote's fumble set up one Giant touchdown. And in the fourth quarter, the suddenly high-flying hometowners grabbed the lead on Frank Gifford's score. Giant fans dreamed of a championship. With just 2 minutes remaining, it was only a first down away. But a controversial call on Frank Gifford's attempt to gain it on 3rd and 4 began what would be a Giant nightmare.
I think they blew the call. There's a mental thing in your head when you have a 3rd down and a yard to go or half a yard or whatever it happened to be. You know when you've made it. I didn't even look over to the yardstick.
Frank, you should have. New York punted, pinning the Colts far back. The lead seemed safe. What happened next, however, altered the course of professional football. Johnny Unitas desperately drove Baltimore downfield. Stunned Giant fans watched in horror. But NFL executives looked on in glee. For the first time, a nationally televised championship mesmerized millions of viewers. Many more tuned in just in time to witness Steve Myra's game-tying field goal and the NFL's first venture into sudden death.
It was very strange. You know, we were all asking each other what happens next, or, you know, the rules weren't too clear on that. So, but that's again where a guy like Unitas always stepped in there. He was the brains of the outfit, no question about it.
Baltimore lost the coin toss. But after the Giants failed again in their opening drive, the third-year quarterback picked up where he left off in regulation. Although only a field goal was needed, the cocky Unitas left little doubt that with the title on the line, he was leaving nothing to chance.
Well, I was just thinking about a score. I would really, you know, the field goal really never entered my mind. I never have put too much strength on field goals myself. I would rather go for a touchdown. I knew right then and there that we had the ball game won.
John was somewhat criticized for not calling a timeout there and going for the field goal. I think a lot of people have forgotten that it was 3rd down. They thought we were going for it on 4th. But in the event that we missed it, we still had, you know, time for the field goal. But an interesting thing on that play, which was the genius of a Unitas, and a lot of people missed this. We were on the right hash mark, and everybody in the world, including the Giants, thought we were going to go for an off tackle to the left, and if we missed, we'd be right smack in front of the goalpost. And John just took that little bit of a gamble and ran to the right on that play. And everybody was stacked to the left. And he had Lenny Moore there, who was not known as a great blocker. And he threw a key block, and it was wide open. I mean, there wasn't anything to the play.
Through the years, this dramatic championship has been elevated to legendary proportions. Yet legends die hard. Despite well-documented evidence to the contrary, the grandeur of this game is something of a myth.
People have built it up to be such a great game, and it was a good game, but it was far from a great game.
That game was probably the greatest game for the National Football League because of the notoriety of it. But I don't think that game was that good a game, really. I don't think it was the best game ever played.
You know, it wasn't a picture-perfect type game. I think it was just a dramatic ending that most people remember. And it was the greatest game I ever played in, I'll put it that way.